if many students do not pass a course, we may want to do an intervention. However, before we can do so, we need to know what causes them to fail, what mechanisms are responsible. In general, we identify three classes of mechanisms: cognitive, organizational, and motivational. In each of these classes, a lot of possible mechanisms can cause failure. So here we need to narrow things down and focus on a particular course. In this video, we will focus on the course in linear algebra and differential equations taught in the second year of the bachelor program of molecular science and technology. So what are in general possible mechanisms? So we have the class of cognitive mechanisms. Maybe students are not suitable for the program. Maybe they do not have the required pre-knowledge. And you may be able to think of many more cognitive mechanisms. Then there are organizational mechanisms. Maybe in the same quarter there are competing courses, giving them a lot of homework so they don't have enough time for the course. Or maybe there's a problem with the retention, also related to the pre-knowledge. They do not know the material which is required for the course. And you can probably think of many more organizational mechanisms. And thirdly, motivational mechanisms. They may have more important things to do than following a course, like a job on the side, sports, their social life. Maybe they're not motivated because they doubt the usefulness of the course for them, and there could be many more motivational mechanisms. Well, now we have to narrow it down. We first focus on one course, a specific course, which will be a course in linear algebra and differential equations, 6 ECTS, taught in the third quarter of the second year of molecular science and technology, which about 80 to 100 students a year, just to give an idea of the type of course we are talking about. Then how do we narrow this down? We talk to stakeholders and we do some data acquisition. First of all, we talk to the program P, to the program director, to the program coordinator, to see what they think are possible mechanisms of failure for students. Then our very important stakeholders are the students, of course. Both the older students who have already passed this course in the past and have an idea of what students are doing, so the Students Association. And of course we talk to the new students, we have some interviews, and most importantly we have surveys with a pretty high response rate. 80 out of 120 responded to the survey. And finally we talk to the fellow lecturers, both of the mathematics courses and of the non-mathematics courses. So what are the most important mechanisms we identified? What are the key mechanisms that could cause failure? Well, first was retention and transfer, so the knowledge retention. In the second year linear algebra and differential equation course, you need the knowledge of the first year course on calculus and linear algebra. So we identify this both as a cognitive and an organizational mechanism, because the Q3 second year course is quite far apart from the calculus and linear algebra from the first year. So that's organizational part, and knowledge retention is more cognitive. Second mechanism, the study load. The third quarter was always considered much heavier than the other quarters. And possible third mechanism, the culture around the course. How do students perceive the course? Do they think it's useful for them or not? So those are the three mechanisms we're going to focus on. Then, what did we find out? Mainly from the survey. Very important first mechanism, insufficient pre-knowledge, both by the program and the students and the lecturers themselves. That is a key problem. And second a key problem is that the load in the third quarter is much higher than in the first and second quarter of the same year. Also same stakeholders reporting this. Fortunately, the third mechanism does not play a role. The students have a very clear usefulness of the course, everyone reporting this. So we are very happy about the third one. Now, if we look at the first two, we see insufficient knowledge. Well, if you spend sufficient time, you can repair this. The load in the third quarter is much higher than the first 2 quarters, is also not necessarily that much of a problem, provided students spend enough time on all their courses in the third quarter. However, then we had a surprising outcome. Students believe that they spent sufficient time on the course. Well, living happily ever after, right? Well, not exactly, because although they thought they were spending or believed they spent sufficient time on the course, the results of quite a number of students were dreadful, really, really bad. So I wondered, what is going on then? So we have an outlook for this, some future questions. First of all, can we repair, say, the first 2 mechanisms? So can we change the program a bit to improve retention, to spread the study load more evenly throughout the year? And secondly, much more important, students believe they spent enough time. Well, do they spend enough time on their course? This is self-reported, of course. But more importantly, do they spend their time in a useful and an effective way? Because we already heard reports that they were using, say, ChatGPT, for example, to do their homework exercise and consider that doing their homework. So that's a very dangerous part, of course, because then you think you understand the material, but you don't. So the final point, so sort of an expected outcome, is that, well, students believe they spent enough time on the course. However, we are very worried whether they spend this in a useful and effective way. So that's for future thought.